Oh, there it is. Look at you predicting the future. Could have predicted that you were going to be a few minutes late this morning.
I can't help it. It was my computer. It had to update.
You know, a good golfer never blames the clubs. I say this as not a good golfer.
Hang on. All right.
Okay. All right.
Okay, there we are live now.
Okay. Oops. What's going on here, Mary? Technology. I got to turn the volume down on this computer before I get
Good.
yelled
Okay,
at
there we
by
are live now.
Mary. All right.
Wait, you can also go up to muting the sound too.
Oh, well, thank you for the technology tip. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, people jump on when they jump on, but that's fine. Anyway, so what's going on, Mary? You're awake today. You're a little late today.
Yeah.
I've been sitting up here anxiously waiting for you to jump on, but of course we're on Mary Standard Time, which is always about
Oh,
10 minutes late. So
no, it's not. I couldn't help it. My computer had to update.
yeah. So
Well,
anyway,
let's
so
move past that and get on to the live.
oh, look at you go. Look at you. All right, yes. Well, good morning, Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh God, living the dream. Soft service, sunshine as always on a chilly, cold Pennsylvania morning here on a Saturday. It is good to get back doing this on Saturday. I mean, we haven't done this in a Saturday. We've been traveling around
Uh,
and bouncing all over creation. So I'm going to be happy to be doing this today because we got some stuff to do today. We got some usual stuff. We got a thing this tonight, Mary, at the Masonic
mhm.
Lodge. We'll be very excited about that. So we'll be doing our presentation um, over at the Freemason Lodge here in town, where I will be presenting as John Ransom in first person, talk about his trials and tribulations in Belle Isle and Andersonville.
Yeah.
And you're going to be Fanny Granberry.
I'm going to be Fanny Granberry, the wife of Confederate General Hiram Granberry, because her
Dirt.
story doesn't get told a lot. So that's why I wanted to do it. Um, Gentile is on here. Came in a few minutes late. Can you repeat everything said so far? Question mark.
Oh, don't worry about it, Johnny boy, because Mary is also equally late. You're jumping on right as we're signing on, so we're
That's
on
probably why he said that.
we're on FST Fincher Standard
Oh
Time. So
God.
keep that in mind. But anyway,
Good morning,
well,
everybody who's jumped
welcome.
on here.
Mm-hmm. It is. So yeah, so we've been busy around in practicing for this presentation tonight. We didn't do an episode this week, but we're getting back to one here pretty soon. But we have been running around.
AQ and Steve say hi from Rockport.
Oh, very cool. They were here visiting us last week
Yep.
for the tremendous Remembrance Day weekend, Mary. I
Hmm.
don't know if you know this, but we went to a parade. You probably forgot already.
Yep.
And we went to that parade, and that was fun. We saw what's cool about that weekend is we saw a lot of people who we a lot of Civil War friends who come down, and
Yep.
it's kind of like when you visit, you see your family once a year, once a couple times a year on holidays. Remembrance Day weekend is one of the good weekends. We did our trivia over at Gettysburg, and
Yep.
usual, I thought the questions were too easy, but people thought they were too hard. But we did that. We had someone who won, which is very, very cool. We saw our friend Noelle. She came, which is cool.
We
We
saw
saw,
our friends from Indiana, including Olivia
yeah.
and Justin and Olivia's mom, and they brought us beer from Indiana as well as this awesome mug.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. That was very cool. Very cool
Yeah,
to
from
see
the
that. So,
Wallace, the General Lee Wallace Study and Museum. So thank you to them for that.
no, it's pretty cool. It's nice to see a lot of people. We saw obviously Joey and Francine. We saw a whole bunch, but there's too many people who we didn't see. But it was great to see people down here. The parade is always really, really good, and everyone gets into it. It's kind of like the big shindig, which is happening right now in Plymouth, our old place. But this
Yeah.
is instead of pilgrims and stuff, it's Civil War stuff. So it was very, very cool. I like this one better.
Someone just called the Remembrance Weekend Civil War prom, which it's kind of in a way like that. It's also like Christmas for Civil War nerds. Just on a side note here, Jeffrey's on here and he said that he was in town a few weeks ago and he had a great conversation with a Mason about them taking over New Year's festivities. I asked him if that guy's name was Bill.
Yeah, well, that's our latest freaking Pavlovian head shake on that one, but that'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that again. Um, Maybe this will be the last year we do it, and somebody else does it afterwards, hopefully. But we'll find out. Some
Yep.
people are very adamant about doing it. So if you are in town on New Year's Eve, certainly come down to the square, or as the Civil War historians call it, the Diamond, and
Yep.
our lodge will be hosting the big Lincoln hat, which is raised up at midnight, which is kind of
Yep.
cool. and then it's a fun thing in town. A lot of good sponsorships. That's always a good time. Hopefully for good weather and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Oh, apparently it wasn't Bill. He was said he was in town and he was working in Toronto.
Oh, I know who that was.
Okay.
That was our friend Zippity Doodah.
Zippity doodah.
Yeah, Aaron. Anyway, that's cool. So yeah, hopefully
Zippity doodah.
yeah. So that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of good stuff coming down here. And it's funny because one weekend after Remembrance Day, it's funny because last weekend the place was jammed
And now it's so quiet here. And I mean the cool thing about Remembrance Weekend is it's like kind of the last big event for reenactors before kind of go into winter quarters, so to speak. But it was great to see everybody. You and I didn't march this year because we had too much going on. So hopefully next year we'll be able to march. But we still I still dressed up because I'm like, it's Remembrance Weekend. I'm putting on my uniform. So I wore my basically what I wear when I portray the 26th Wisconsin. That's kind of the regiment I've attached myself to.
It's okay.
Is the 26th Wisconsin. I may, however, be wearing an artillery jacket when we do Christmas in Gettysburg.
That's true. That's true. We're burgeoning artillerists apparently, which is really, really cool. That was a good time. We were asked to participate in an event here in town about a month or so ago where they were doing a Cub Scout jamboree, and so they asked us if we would join an artillery group to demonstrate firing the guns. You and I each got to fire several cannons, pull the lanyard, and that was pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff down here. That's the best thing about being down here, admittedly, is the opportunities that pop up that you can do. There's a lot of stuff, but this weekend's great because there's nobody in town.
It's
bars
quiet.
are empty, Mary. The bars are empty.
Yep.
So it's good. We can get a seat at the bar and have to wait forever. So it's pretty good. So,
yep. Gentili said Buster's Tavern is sponsoring the hat lowering.
Buster's Tavern. If anybody's been in town for the Remembrance Day week, I mean for the New Year's, it is fun. It is fun. It's a little hokey with the hat because if they raise it, they don't lower it, and it's still pretty cool though. But it's a big Lincoln hat and it goes up, and it's very towny. It's very like we were at the Halloween parade a few weeks ago, and there's people dressed as cows cruising on tractors, and it's very towny like that. So, and then we got the Christmas festival where you and I are going to be doing that thing too. We're going to be over at the.
We're going to be at the Heritage Center. David Maxwell just said he's going to be in town for that too. Yeah, we're going to be over at the Heritage Center that day with, I believe our friend Ty is coming in for it. Hopefully Maria and Tony join us as well for that.
Yeah, and so we're going to basically have, I'm not sure what we're doing, to be honest, but we're going to be out there in a tent in our gear. Christmas festival is a pretty big deal down here, and so that'll be pretty cool. So if you're in town, come by. Because if you haven't been to Gettysburg around Christmas time, it's really cool around Christmas time.
Yeah, and that's when they're doing, so the Friday night, the 5th, I believe they're doing the tree lighting downtown. So that's 2 weeks from yesterday. And then Steinway Ave is basically going to be transformed into like a Victorian Christmas. So the idea is that any of the reenactors there would be soldiers that would be furloughed over Christmas in Gettysburg, 1863. You can KQ until you can get a refreshing glass of white wine at Buster's Tavern.
PTSD after that one again. But that's probably all they're going to serve at Buster's Tavern.
Yeah.
But it's good though. But there's a lot of stuff. But this is kind of coming into that time of the year when the Civil War world starts to slow down a little bit historically. Yeah, you got some stuff that happened. Obviously, Stones River is going to be in December, and there's going to be some things that are going to go down on it. But
Franklin,
yep. So December is not a dead month, but it's certainly one that's not as busy as the summertime. But it's nice though because we can focus on some different things that we're going to do. And once we roll out our next couple episodes, I'm sure there'll be something we'll be talking about with some aspect of these, as we always do. And Franklin's always funny, Mary, admittedly, because it's funny. Franklin's kind of like Gettysburg, where it brings out emotions out of people for whatever reason. People here in town at this battle, they have their favorite generals, they have their favorite regiments. It's like they're rooting for their sports teams. Franklin's similar. Well, you don't have this. I've never seen such a dynamic in Antietam. No one walks around and says,
"No,
oh my God, the 32nd Pennsylvania. Oh my God, the first." No one sits there and goes, "Well, I'll tell you that's General French. Ride or die."
You mean not like the whole like John Bell Hood was awesome?
Well, that's the thing too. Is Franklin similar to Gettysburg in so far as people get really, really geeked up on people they like and people they don't like. And it's funny how
Hmm.
it's focused more on the rebel side. And for people who don't know the Battle of Franklin, there was 6 generals who were killed or mortally wounded in that fateful charge, including guys like Granbury and Claiborne and John Adams, Otto
Straw.
Strahl, those people. And it's controversial by the whole way the whole thing played itself out. And it's people get very attached to certain people, or
Yeah.
more so detached from certain people, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things too. And we have our own opinions with things like
Hmm.
that. I think personally that Richard Schofield does not get enough credit on the Union side. It's mostly about Hood
You mean
sucks.
John?
John Schofield. Richard Schofield's a different person who I know. John Schofield. And you
Hmm.
you 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 focus more on the negative about this was not a battle that Schofield won that led into the Battle of Nashville. This was a battle that Hood lost because he was too lack of patience stuff. And so I think that Schofield needs more credit than he gets. But I also think some of the guys who get blamed don't get they get blamed a little too much.
Yeah.
You never hear about Emerson Opdyke ever when you talk about Franklin.
No.
You never hear about people like that. You hear about about Pickett's charge in Franklin. You hear about what was Hood doing. Was
Yeah.
Hood doped up on on Landrum and all that stuff.
At that point he wasn't. That I totally get. But the whole thing with my thing with Franklin is the fact that it shifts. There's two sides to it. There's those that completely 100% blame Hood, which I don't think is fair. But then there's people that are like, oh, Hood had nothing. It was all his, subordinates' fault, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, no, he's the commanding general, so some blame has to fall on him. It was a bad idea.
Well, I
Um,
mean, the buck,
you
the
know,
buck, the buck does stop here. As a phrase I just invented, and it's one, but it's true though. But I think people accentuate the negative a lot with this, and we've talked about this a million times. Franklin is window dressing at the end of the day. After the Battle of Atlanta, and especially after Sherman's going towards Savannah,
yeah,
and this is opinion, not fact, and people want to push back on this. That's totally cool. Um, but it's in my opinion, it's unnecessary deaths because the horse was out of the wagon at that point, was out of the
yeah,
barn at that point. So why you're going to take all those men and you're going to go try to get to Nashville to beat Nashville before
yeah.
Schofield gets up there, joins with George the Rock of Mill Springs Thomas, and then if they take Nashville, they're going to keep going and they're going to work their way east. They're going to join up with Joseph E. Johnson. They're going to catch up. They're going to beat Grant. The war is going to be over. Sweet tea and NASCAR for everybody. Everyone's going to be happy, right? But that's sort of how some people think with this. And I thought it was just a Bataan death march all the way. When you think about the fact that even if they got to Nashville and they did get bogged down anyway, what were they going to do? They were beaten up anyway. I've always looked at Franklin as really an unnecessary battle and just
Yeah.
unnecessary death, as I do Bentonville for that regard, and a lot of Sherman's march to the Carolinas. But you know, I
Yeah.
guess I'm using 2020 hindsight being my benefactor as always, which I
But
tend to do, Mary.
the last few years, and it's getting progressively more and more, Franklin has become just what happens there in the cast of characters has become very polarizing. Like it's almost like there's this shift into like let's all hate on Claiborne for like because he gets too much credit or whatever. And it's like, well, he's a good commander. He's popular. And yes, people are going to visit Franklin and want to know about him because he's Patrick Claiborne. He's a fascinating study. David Maxwell said Franklin was an ill-advised attack, but Schofield planned well, and his men stood fast against some violent, hard-hitting attacks. And
Well,
my
yeah,
Schofield is good, as you said. Like he's good.
With Schofield's, and let's back up the bus a little bit here, Mary, or back up the Amish wagon as we were talking about a little while ago, right? Was Franklin doesn't happen if not for Spring Hill, right? And people never give credit for Schofield for that. They talk about the fact that everyone's asleep at the switch. Benjamin Cheatham, they let him sneak right by.
Yeah.
Um, and when the fact of the matter is, Schofield was firing his cannon to make it look like they were going the other direction, and he ends up sneaking right past Hood's army. Very similar to when we're talking about Chattanooga,
Yep. Browns Ferry.
Browns Ferry, very similar to that. And he ends up sneaking right past them. And now it's going to force Hood, who's going to be all her, he's going to blame everybody.
Except
And,
himself.
and of course, Forrest is saying we should, ironically, we should be going around to the right. It's funny how that phrase comes up a lot on the Confederate side. But in any case, but he ends up doing that. And he ends up basically going right into an entrenched army when you're talking specifically about the Battle of Franklin. And Franklin really is, it's a couple different things. It's Spring Hill and it's Franklin. And once you get past Franklin, the whole point is Schofield trying to get through Franklin to rebuild the bridge, get across so he can sneak back to Nashville. So really all he's trying to do is set up a real delaying maneuver in Franklin anyway. And it ends up being a beatdown. You know, about 6,200 casualties the Confederates had.
Yep.
The Battle of Franklin, and it's in the not the snow, but it's like a sleet, a freezing rain.
It's like just all around crappy weather. The one thing I don't like is when people are like, "Oh, it's the Pickett's Charge of the West." It's that just goes right through me. It's like nails on a chalkboard. It's not the same at all.
No,
it's
no,
not. It's and I get like everybody tries to like be like, "This is the Gettysburg of the so and so," and it's like just it's. And I've never been to Franklin, but talking to people who have, it's a very powerful place.
I think we're going next. I think we're going next year.
I think we are. Yes.
Rumor has it.
Yeah, we are.
Rumor on the water cooler.
Yeah, has it? You mean the water cooler at the blue and gray?
Yeah. They have water there.
By the way, it's also Richard. It's also not Richard. It's General Nathan Kimball's birthday today. Frank is on here.
Nathan Kimball. Yeah, he the only guy to beat Jackson and Lee in the Civil War the entire time. And and he's a good Monocacy is a fun battle. It really, really is.
Was he at Monocacy?
Not Monocacy. Kernstown.
Yeah, Kernstown. Yeah, where Jackson threw Garnett under the bus.
Yeah, let's stop using that phrase.
Anyway, so so there's, I think it's Gina. She lived in Franklin for a couple of years, right next to the battlefield. And yeah, it's not like Gettysburg battlefield. But you can go into the one house where there's like still the bullet holes in it. You can see where the 5 or 6 generals were laid out after the battle, including Granbury, States Rights, Cleburne, Strahl. I think Adams died a few days later, right?
Yeah, he was mortally wounded.
Yeah.
Obviously Cleburne and Hiram Granbury, they got mutilated pretty good.
I don't know how to tell you this, but Granbury, that was not a walk it off Hiram situation. Shot in the face.
No, getting shot in the face is a bad day.
That's not walk it off, Hiram. Get up, come on.
Yeah, and same thing with Cleburne too, but especially Hiram Granbury, he fell to his knees and basically died on his knees.
Yeah. And he was like, I think he was picking up on Cleburne's anger and frustration from the morning, where Cleburne is blamed. I don't think that was right of Hood to basically be like, let's see who to blame. We're going to pick the Irish guy. And I think he was very frustrated to what he was going into, but he follows orders. He has to. What's he supposed to do? Is he supposed to be like, I'm not doing this. This is suicide, kind of thing. And then Hiram Granbury is part of Cleburne's division. He's leading Granbury's Texans, and his last words were, "Let it never be said Texans lagged in the fight," which I believe were also the words of the Houston Texans the other night when they kicked the Bills' ass.
Oh, they kicked their asses, but it was a nice surprise to see them lose. Not gonna lie.
But yeah, and there's and then Cleburne's last words were, "If we were to die today, let us die like men."
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of it is poetry and stuff written after the fact, but the truth of the matter is it's true, and you have a lot of these guys. S.D. Lee was there. You're talking about guys like Alexander Stewart. They had a lot of people who were there who survived as well. But yeah, and we'll get to Franklin, and that's it's one of those places. There's a couple of bucket lists that we still have, and that's certainly one of them. But I know, and I've been in Nashville before, a couple times, and I've never been to Franklin. I just haven't made it down,
No, there's like Franklin and Shiloh, Monocacy, or no, we've been to Monocacy. Franklin, Shiloh. Where's the other one? Richmond in Kentucky, Perryville.
Well, Vicksburg.
Stones River, Vicksburg, all those.
Schrute Farms.
Schrute Farms. Isn't that just outside of town here?
I think that's outside of Scranton. Yeah. But no, but it's good though. But no, there's a lot of places to go. And if anybody has, gone to these, chime in. I know we have friends who live around these places too. So we'll definitely be up for because I know if we go to Franklin, it would probably make sense to go over to the Stones River too.
Yeah,
As I
I
think
think her
about Stones
name's
River.
Gina just said. She said if you go to Franklin, go to Spring Hill, Murfreesboro. Frank was there for the 160th last year.
Frank gets everywhere.
I know.
He's like the Marlin Man guy at all the baseball games. That's who he is. You know what I'm talking about?
Pardon
He
the,
always wears the orange behind like all the World Series. It's right behind home plate
yep,
and
he's
all the
always
big games.
there.
That
Yep.
Frank's Marlin Man of the Civil War. He gets everywhere.
Yep. Noelle just said Elm Springs near Columbia.
Hmm.
I think she was telling us about that place last week. Jeffrey just said, too soon, Mayor. I still have nightmares of Josh Allen getting sacked over and over again.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately he's is what it is. Is what it is. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of cool places to go with this stuff too. And now
Mhm.
it's funny how fast time goes with this stuff too. It's just now we're coming into 2026, so we're kind of coming into the 160,
Yep.
sixth anniversary and 60th. So it always recycles. It just never ends.
Yep.
Um, but it's certainly with certainly with the campaign schedule, it gives you a little bit of a break once you get into January and February. But then you get into Shiloh again, you get into the assassination again, you get into
Yep.
the Booth escape, all that stuff too. We got to
Which I
mention
think
we got
this
to mention our
April,
friend. Well, I was going to
oh,
mention that our friend Dave Taylor. People, if you guys don't know Dave, he was I don't know if he's a I want to say he's one of the true experts on the Lincoln assassination.
yep.
And he's a friend of ours, and he used to live in Maryland, and he used to do the Booth Escape tour with the Surratt Society out of Surratt's Tavern in
Yep.
Clinton, Maryland. And he moved to Texas of all places, and he's coming back for March and April. And he's going to get the old band together again. And he's going to
Yep.
do the Booth Escape tours. You put it on our Facebook page, and it takes you from Ford's Theater all the way through Peterson House to Baptist Alley. Actually, the tour you and I did with
Yep.
John and Kevin and all them. And it takes you all the way through down to Garrett Farm. It's going to take you all day. And you're on a bus and they have food. I think it's like $140, whatever. But
Yep.
it pays for itself if you do it
Well,
because
you get into three historical sites paid for included. Well, more than that, but one's the Surratt Tavern, and then there's a couple other places. You get into private property as well that you wouldn't be able to do if you just did it yourself, like what
well,
we
that's
did a
the
few
thing.
weeks
So
ago.
we if you're an average people like us, you go to Surratt's Tavern, that's like $10. You go to the Mud House, there's like $10. And that's really about it. But because of his connections he has, you're going to get to go to Dr. Stewart's house, the Claydell farm. You get
Yeah.
to go there. You're going to have to go to Elizabeth Quisenberry's house. You're going to go. So you see a lot of the places that are private homes. Huckleberry, Thomas Jones' house. You'll be able to get into these places because of
Yeah.
his connections. So even if you've been on this tour, it's worth going to. And I think we're going to do it. It's probably in April, um,
Yeah.
because just to just see Dave and support Dave. But I think it's a great opportunity, to go and see all these things and see history. And if you have not done a Booth Escape tour, it's whether whatever your opinion is of the assassination and Booth and all, it doesn't glamorize John Wilkes Booth or Davy
No.
Harold. It just simply shows you where they went, and for the most part, the scenery is pristine. It's really the same.
Yeah.
And the Mud House is probably one of the single best tours I've ever been on as far as
Yeah.
the interpretation. And they
Yeah.
let you touch stuff that's not behind glass. We get to hold Dr. Mudd's planner. He signed it.
Yeah.
Real cool stuff. So if you haven't been, that's your opportunity to. If not, then we'll probably do another one too. But we're not going to be able to get a lot of the places he does. So if you want the full one, the full banana tour, go with Dave. Otherwise, we could do another one ourselves and just kind of do it cash like we did last time.
Yeah. Well, and just real quick, Christopher asked if there's a website to sign up for the booth tour. So I just posted it. There, it's lincolnassassinationtours.com. So all the information is on there. So yeah, you can sign up there for it, for any of his tours. And he knows his stuff and he's a really nice guy too. And his wife I've never met her, but I'm friends with her on Facebook. She's really sweet as well. And I think she's helping him get this going again. So that's pretty cool that he's coming back here to do that. It looks like the tours are on March 14th, April 18th, and then again on April 19th. So yeah, all day, over 170 plus miles through Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Um, Entire tours narrated, entry and tours of three museums and two private properties. And then there's like a catered box lunch that you have as well. So it's pretty good deal for what you're getting. Um, and then, oh, James was wondering if anyone watched Death by Lightning.
No, we certainly
Yes.
did. We
Yes.
certainly did. And James
Great show.
Garfield, we're gonna be watching that. That was, people can chime in on that, but that was up there, in my opinion, with the John Adams miniseries as far as
Yeah.
quality. I mean, it wasn't as long as John Adams, but it was I think it was only 4 episodes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was really, really well done. Was it Michael Shannon, the actor who plays
Yeah.
Garfield? He's
Yeah.
really, really good. He was in that Boardwalk Empire TV show
Yeah.
with Steve Buscemi about whatever 10 or so years ago.
Yeah.
Really, really well done, and I thought pretty historically accurate too.
Yeah.
They really got the Chet Arthur character really, really well. I thought, as far as being a drunk, corrupt New Yorker, as far as the peer, I thought they did a real good
Yeah.
job with that. And the guy who played Charles Gateau was fantastic.
Oh yeah, he was really good too. And then the guy who played Chester A. Arthur, did you mention that one?
Yeah,
He was good.
the guy from he was from Parks and Rec
Yeah.
with my friend Amy.
Friend Amy.
That's all right.
Chester Arthur.
Yeah.
So yeah, David said it was a great series. Yeah, it's awesome. It's on Netflix, I think. And it's just like called a limited series because it's only 4 episodes, but it's really, really good. Some references obviously to the Civil War. There's he's not in it, but Hancock is mentioned because he's the one that loses to Garfield in the election. Sherman's brother John is in it because he's the one that was initially the Republican candidate. He was kind of the front runner. AQ said Garfield experts are everywhere now. Yes.
Well, we would talk about that with a friend of ours down here, a local down here in town, and I made that meme with the Forrest Gump thing on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
And it's funny because whenever one of these series comes out, and you always, it's always in your head, and then he messaged us and says, "Well, I'm looking forward to." Maybe it was about the American Revolution series. Maybe,
You did it, but like it was.
No, I didn't think about the Garfield thing, and then he reached in. But he's right on though. People, I mean, we've been on the Garfield train for a while, and I have a lot of history friends who watch that, and they were amazed. And I've always, I mean, I could be freaking wrong. It won't be the first time I've been wrong, but I've always looked at him as he could have been Lincoln 2.0 with Reconstruction.
Yep.
He could have been.
Now, I think he would have been I think he would have been one of the best presidents.
I mean, we'll never know, but he seemed to be like, okay, John Wilkes Booth robbed the country of Reconstruction, and then Andrew Johnson came in and he took a steaming beer piss all over it. and then U.S. Grant came in and he was as corrupt as you could possibly get and didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
And now you have a guy coming in now eventually who looked like he was going to kind of continue what Lincoln was going to do. It seemed like it anyway. He had similar ideas. It seemed to me like he could have been the guy who might have stabilized everything. And then, of course, he gets killed. Then Arthur comes in and tries to do what he did, but he just didn't have the chops. He wasn't. That's not who he was. And then the history goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think when you're looking at after Lincoln's assassination, I mean, it's up there with Kennedy as far as assassinations, what could have been.
Yeah.
And of course, today's the Kennedy Day in Dallas, speaking of.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes full circle. But yeah, I thought it was really, really well done. Again, one of my favorite presidents. And I think I agree with you that what he could have done for the country, maybe things would have been a lot different. But I think too, he didn't want the job. Like, it was shocking when he got nominated, and he
wanted. Are you kidding me?
I don't know if he did or not. Like that's the impression I got. Like
the speech he gave, which was very historically accurate. The speech he gave was one that that's someone who wants the nomination gave that speech. Maybe he just wanted to get on the radar.
Yeah.
For the future, and maybe he wanted that soon. But he's someone who clearly had that in the back of his head. And, he nailed it. Very similar to Lincoln's Cooper Union speech, right? As far as how impactful, as far as going forward, as far as a candidate goes. Maybe he didn't want it then, but I think it was in the back of his head. I think it's hard to be that type of person, to be in a convention like that, see everybody cheering for everybody, thinking, man, I think this would be so cool if I could do this.
I don't think John Sherman would have been a great president.
Do you know how many times I've been sitting at Fenway Park imagining me hitting a home run in the game. So how are you going to sit there at a convention not imagine you being
I
the guy
guess,
who hit
yeah,
it,
I
right?
guess. I don't know. He just seems so like he seems so humble compared to some of the
Yeah,
other ones that were like compared to like John Sherman. I will say this, it made me think like Hancock would have been a terrible president.
of course he would have. He would
The
have been.
country would have went backwards, I think, because of him.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, but I think he would have been very much about him. It's it's tough to say because it's tough to speculate because no one really ever knows how he really would have been. Same if McClellan had won in '64, how that would have been.
Mhm.
And the funny part about it is people think I'm not going to sit here and whatever about McClellan, but people seem to think that he was just going to simply end the war and that was going to call it a day. He was going to try and negotiate, but they still wanted to win the war. It just would have been a little bit different.
It would have been different.
But it's better than Lincoln won. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, I digress.
But Gentili agrees with you. Said the convent can't give that convention speech, should not want it. Someone on a podcast this week said it was like Obama's '04 in terms of launching him.
I remember watching his. That was in Boston in 2004. When John Kerry was running. I remember watching that, going, "Oh my God, who is this? Who is this guy?" And I was like, "Wow! I mean, this is a guy who's going to run for president someday." And I think it was a similar situation. That's a good on you, John. Well done, well done. But I think that's very similar. But I think it'd be like if Obama got nominated that night was president.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen like that anymore. But
No.
I think that's kind of how it went. But I think you're right, though. I think you're right, Mary. I think he would have been a really, really good president. He would have been someone who'd been really, really good with Reconstruction.
Yeah.
It would have settled a lot of stuff down. And I think would have been the first time going back to probably before the Nebraska Kansas Act, right? 59, when the country might have been stable.
Yeah.
Because really, ever since then, when the Missouri Comrades got outspun by Nebraska, Kansas, which spurred the whole John Brown thing, everything turned into loading up, getting regiments. I mean, a lot of these militia groups that are sprung out to catch the slaves after Nebraska, Kansas turned to the Confederate regiments. So ever since then, you were either in a ready state of war or some sort of state of anxiety or anger or something.
Waiting and not knowing what was going to happen.
Right. And I think Garfield would have brought it down.
Yeah. And then, Hal's on here checking in from Littleton, Mass.
Littleton, Mass.
The guy that knows your godparents.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They certainly does.
AQ said Barlow for president, so then James said Howard for president. Funny thing about it, Howard had no political aspirations, I don't think, other than, he's on the Freedmen's Bureau, and that was under Grant's presidency. So of course it became corrupt. But it also, like, the other issue you had was Fernando Wood, who had a very personal hatred towards Howard for whatever reason, decided to bring him down via the Freedmen's Bureau. And that's why Howard eventually left.
That's you know why he hated him.
I know. Yeah. Because he was, everybody gets the vote.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that was something that was kind of going back and forth. You look back to John Lord Garrison, William Lord Garrison. He was someone, this is going back in the 1850s now, another masshole Mary, who was very pro-abolitionist, blacks should get the vote. This is before the Civil War. So there was always that thing that was there. But you're right, though, and go back to Garfield. He probably would have helped settle things down. Who knows? He might have fallen on his face too. But I think he probably would have been really, really good. And I think he would have been an outstanding president.
Oh yeah. Jeffrey said, I hope series like this will shine a light and interest in Reconstruction era to World War I. Most schools glaze over that important time period. And James said the way they touched on PTSD and flashbacks was done beautifully too. I agree. I like seeing that kind of like, this is a guy that's been through battle and he's seen some stuff, as well. And yeah, James said Reconstruction history has always felt underdone. It very much is. Like, even admittedly,
Reconstruction history is never going to be a thing, and you know that, and so do I.
Oh yeah,
it's never going to be because someone's going to have to bite the bullet, and that's going to be that. You're talking about the Klan, you're talking about corruption, you're talking about, and it's just never going to be done. At least not nowadays.
The most vivid account I've ever read of it from a person who lived through it. Now, mind you, it's Howard, so it's in his memoirs, so of course there's going to be bias with it. But I don't know what happened. But something happened and Howard was just like, you know what? I'm not going to gloss over this time period in history. he talks about the Klan. He talks about how terrible it was for people who worked for the Freedmen's Bureau, that he would send teachers down to these schools in the South and they would come back north because the Klan would go threaten to kill them and their families if they didn't leave. Like that's how bad it was. It was a terrible, terrible time period. And I think Howard, just everything that happened to him in the Freedmen's Bureau with Fernando Wood, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to gloss over this. I'm going to tell this part of, but Howard was like that. Like he didn't believe that war and the after effects of it should ever be glory. He differed in his opinion about that, like on like Chamberlain, who thought war, Chamberlain said war is glory kind of thing. And Howard wasn't like that. And he was where was I going with that? And Howard was just like, you know what? I'm going to treat this like I treated telling the Civil War. It's not going to be pretty to talk about, but he did. And it shines a light on how bad Reconstruction really was and what happened, especially with the Freedmen's Bureau. So Frank said they canceled an entire video game that was based on Reconstruction period. There are some video games that do touch on Reconstruction. BioShock Infinite does a little bit, which is interesting.
Pretty sure Pac-Man does.
Pac-Man.
No, Miss Pac-Man. I'm not a video game guy.
But yeah, like a Reconstruction is not something that gets talked about a lot because I think it's still kind of a touchy subject. And even in some ways, the Civil War is too. I mean, you saw some of the stuff that was spinning around Facebook about the Gettysburg Address this before Remembrance Day.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. But you're not going to get, the problem is you're going to have to get people to kind of unfurl their brains a little bit and think a little bit differently. And that's, as well as I do, that ain't going to happen. Ain't gonna happen,
Well, it's like I said, some of the stuff that was being said about the National Cemetery and the Gettysburg Address leading up to Remembrance Weekend. Remember that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's people are people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm interrupting you.
But in any case, yeah. But I think it'd be nice if there was more of a focus on the post. Liz Varon wrote that really good book on Longstreet.
Yeah,
it was just heavily focused on Reconstruction, and I think it's I think it's an opportunity, but it's just not sexy, and that's the problem. And the parts that are kind of like the dark parts of history that people don't want to talk about anymore, that people want to gloss over nowadays for whatever reason. I mean, and that's the thing, it's unfortunate. But you could you could read about the military districts, and you can read about all these things and the black codes and all these things. But again, it's what happened. That's the effect again of the assassination. What Booth did. If you really want to look at situations of today that still exist, it's because of the assassination.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Christopher asked, did Lee have the same take as Howard on not memorializing the Civil War? He did.
Very much so.
Yeah.
He didn't want the Confederate flag displayed. He didn't want, I mean, there's that picture, the picture of him on Franklin Street in Richmond, where right after the war, when they took the pictures, those famous Lee pictures you see with, with his son, with Walter Taylor. And they had to basically beg him to put the uniform on because he didn't want to do it. And whenever anybody came to Lee's house, they called on him. He said, basically, forget, it's over with. We did our best, move on. Our Virginia needs her sons more than ever now. I mean, we have to work on Reconstruction now. And so he very much did not want that. And so I think if he could have come brought back to life and came to the parade with last weekend, he would have mortified the Confederates marching that parade.
He would have been. I agree.
I think
that's exactly what I thought too. I was like, you're talking General Lee, right? Like he would have been like, what is this? Like, what has happened? Kind of thing, right? Like, what is this? Bjorn's on here, our friend and fellow podcast sponsor, Bjorn from Abraham Lincoln Bookshop in Chicago.
The pride of Chicago. Our Malort buddy.
Yes. Him and Amanda are more Malort buddies. He said, I like talking Reconstruction. I asked him, what are some recommended books about Reconstruction? The other thing I noticed too, Bjorn, is I saw you were talking about on one of your Facebook Lives this week from the bookshop about the it's not a new version. Sherman's Memoirs is now out in annotated format. It's a gigantic book for anybody who had bought the annotated Grant's memoirs that came out, I think, just before COVID. They now have a version of Sherman's memoirs that
Yeah.
have been annotated, which I managed to get a copy of it because it's one of the perks of where I work now at a library. So we've got that, and I don't know, that's like probably my third copy I've ever had of Sherman's memoirs. And I know Bjorn and I were talking about it I think it was Bjorn I was talking about it with. Someone I was talking recently about Sherman's memoirs, and just that they can be kind of on the dry side. And Sherman's very chatty in them, but they are definitely worth a read as much as Grant and Howard's are. Um, Bjorn mentions start with Eric Fauner's Reconstruction. It's old, but a great starting place. Thank you, Bjorn.
Yeah, but I mentioned Liz Varen's book on Longstreet. It's not specifically on Reconstruction, but it's Longstreet in Reconstruction. And it talks a little bit about some of the New Orleans raids, talk about his politics, some of the things he did. It doesn't give you the other book on Reconstruction that's interesting to read. Believe it or not, is John Brown Gordon's memoirs. It's obviously very, very, very heavily skewed to the South, but it gives you his insight to how he interpreted going forward but there's not as many books because like I said a little while ago, it's not as sexy as a topic. It's very heavily based on politics versus war, and people like war. People don't reenact political speeches like they do battles, but I think it's going to be one of those things.
Yeah. David Maxwell said he bought the book too. It's gorgeous. It's a gigantic book, but it's got a beautiful cover page. I was so happy when I got it. Frank, is Mary going to write the annotated Howard autobiography? Maybe.
There'll be a centerfold in that book.
James, it is a big book. It's a big book alert. It is. It's even bigger now because they've annotated it, which is, I find that helpful because it like.
Don't you think annotation though takes a little bit away from the original source though, because it puts opinion into it. It kind of skews you a little bit.
Not really. I think it's helpful. That's just my opinion. I find it helpful because sometimes I'm like, where is he getting this from? Or it leads you to another source that you might not have known about as well. Kevin's on here, our tour guide friend. Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Howdy ho. He was in Beaufort, South Carolina earlier this week. He said they do a great job about interpreting Reconstruction, African American lives post-war, and all those topics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I don't know. I think there's so many good ideas for books. As much as you see there's a new Lee book out, or there's a new McClellan book or new Lincoln book. I think there's definitely subjects that really should be better done. And we'll go back a little while ago as I think about now. Yeah, Reconstruction needs a much more light shined on it, because it seems like most books that I've read talk about it in a certain context that's outside of the point of the book. It's kind of like the B-side, the Robin to the Batman. Right.
Yeah.
But I like Varen's book. I think that's one that it's one of those you subtly learn about it, but without knowing you're being learned into it.
Yeah. Oh, Allie's on here too.
Oh, my friend Allie.
Allie K.
The pride of Minnesota. My gold Goover fan friend.
She's now the pride of Ottawa.
She is. Someone who moved to Canada who didn't go crazy. Anyway,
you just made Gentilly laugh about that.
Anyway,
Bjorn said Darren is right about Longstreet and Reconstruction being an important topic. What if every Civil War book was just about the Civil War? I agree. And there's been some come out this year, like Bennett Parton's book about the March to the Sea, where it's looking at the African American perspective of it. The emancipation that happened, that was a topic that has not been really touched on before, and it got away from the military aspects of it. And I remember recommending that book to people that weren't into history.
Parton's book?
Yeah, Bennett Parton, his book about that was a really good book. And he's a nice kid too. I like that we got to meet him in person.
Yeah, and kid is a good description. He's probably about 23, 24.
I know.
No, but I think him, his book is going to be one of the is and I read it. I'm like, I know this is his PhD dissertation. I know it is by reading it. And of course, when we were hanging with him at the museum that night, he told us a little bit about it.
Yeah.
That book in Rubin's book, I think, are the two best books who describe the actual march to the sea. But I like Bennett Parton's book though, because you're right. It brings in. I'm not a religious guy. Never was. Never will be. But I will say that he talked about the Day of Jubilee and brought the religion aspect into the slave mindset of the March to the Sea that tied it together, where literally Sherman taking them to the sea was foretold in their scripture.
Yeah.
And he tied it together a certain way without coming across too piousy and little too, to whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a good book. It's very well written. Versus Rubin's book is a little more X's and O's, explains.
It's still good though.
But no, it is. But I think there's a lot of good things you can read about these things. But his book is fantastic. I thought it was great.
And what I liked about it too was that you find out that Jefferson C. Davis doesn't just do it once, not twice, but 3 times.
Yeah.
He lifts up pontoons and bridges and doesn't allow African Americans to cross. He does it 3 times.
No, and exactly. And that's not a nice guy, Mary. Not a nice guy.
I can honestly say he's probably the one next to Forrest that I dislike the most in the Civil War.
Yeah. No,
and just because I dislike them does not mean I won't study them. I just don't like them as people.
Yeah. So that's fine.
Some other books about Reconstruction. Bjorn said newer boundary pushing Reconstruction is The Rise and Fall of the Second American Republic. It's about more than just Reconstruction, but it puts it in period context. AQ says The War Outside My Window, The Civil War Diary of Leroy Wiley Gresham, 1860, 1865 is a different perspective. Oh, she was talking about that at Blue and Gray last week. It's like a diary of a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was.
Oh, sorry. So Bjorn said Rise and Fall is by Dr. Manisha Sina.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another one.
Yeah, I mean, Reconstruction obviously is it's a troubled read, and it can the problem with reading Reconstruction books, admittedly, is you kind of have to pick and choose, because it is fertile ground for the whole lost causism when you read Reconstruction books. And so you have to kind of understand what you're reading. And there's no shame in it. If you read it, just give you a different perspective. But I mean, there are certain things post-war, and not just Reconstruction. I read a book recently that said that if you think John Wilkes Booth was basically a lone wolf assassin and wasn't part of the Confederate Secret Service, that's lost causism. He thinks, this book I read says that he was an agent of the Confederate Secret Service on orders to shoot Lincoln, which I don't agree with. There's no evidence. Yeah, he met with a couple of Confederate agents in Boston at the Parker House.
And in Montreal too.
Right. But there's no evidence directing it. There's a leap of faith. Bjorn probably knows the book I'm talking about, and who we talked about in Chicago.
You talked about the book in person with him.
Yeah, with him. So, but again, there's lost causism, there's reverse lost causism with this stuff, and you have to be able to sift through it and sniff through it. But he's right. Manisha's book is really, really good. I think so many that the Longstreet book is fantastic. I think there's so many, but again, if you're a Civil War nerd and you like to read about history and flanking maneuvers and Catlet Station and John Pope losing his hat and all the fun stuff, you might be a little bored with it. It's obviously very heavy politics, but
I think it helps you understand today the mindset that some people have towards the Civil War. David Max said, I mean, Jeff C. Davis killed a fellow officer in cold blood. That's a pretty good indicator of what a POS he was.
And he walked away with it, got away with it.
Yeah, it's like, you know what we're going to do for you? We're going to promote you and make you general. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do.
But it's good, though, because I've noticed, with these series coming out now, the Garfield series, the Jefferson series that's been out there right now.
The Rev War.
Well. It's more of a shine on history. And the history channel and these stations are showing less Chumley and more history now.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool too. Love Chumley, don't get me wrong. It's a great show. But I think there's more of a focus. And I think more people have come to us now and asked us about books now, about being read. Have you noticed that?
Yep.
about suggestive books to read, and a lot of them I've never heard of, so it gives us something to read too. And what we
Yeah.
need.
That's why Bjorn is such a great resource because it's like, what do you have about this? What would you recommend? Because he's very well read with the Civil War.
Well, I mean, we unfortunately we missed the opportunity to go to the Civil War Roundtable the other day
Yeah.
because you got late for work. It was just a long day for us, so we didn't make it. But our friend Hampton Newsom was there, and he wrote his book about the Blueberry Raid, which again is something that no one talks about ever. Um, but there's a lot of books out there for really very niche topics that are
Yeah.
fascinating, and not many people realize that John Dix led an army during the Gettysburg campaign towards Richmond to cut the railroads and try to take a shot at Richmond while Lee had his focus on Pennsylvania, and his book does a good job talking about that. So I missed that we didn't get a chance to speak with him, unfortunately, but it is what it
Yeah,
is.
we wanted to go, but it was a late night for me getting home from work and just it had been a week. I was like, oh, we can't do this tonight.
Yeah.
Bjorn mentions, not to get in too deep, but the Lost Cause version of the Reconstruction is usually called the Dunning School. And most Reconstruction writing of the first half of the 20th century fits that definition.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I mean, there's been a lot of the books that came out, even the fact and fiction. Obviously, Gone with the Wind comes to mind quickly
Yeah.
as far as that whole thing goes. But it's I don't want to say it's alternate history, but it's someone's impression of history of what it was at the time. That's why I like Mary Chestnut's diary. It's an in-war diary, and a lot of it's not true. A lot of it is her perception, but it's what she thought was going on, and it gives you a mindset into the average citizen of Charleston of what they were talking about
Yeah.
at the wine cooler, what they thought. Like we were saying before in this, it's like all those rumors that were going on in 9/11. Oh, this was
Yeah.
going on, this, and none of it to be true. But if you're reading diaries about that at that time, it may not be true, but it gives you an insight into what people were thinking at that time. That's why I like her. People kind of scoffed at her diary. Because it's lost cause
Yeah, wasn't there
dribble.
that one girl that like always came at us when we posted about her diary and was like, no, you need to read this. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
She was a big. I forget who she was a fan of. Was
Oh, some Lucy Pickens.
Lucy Pickens? That's right. And
I'm like,
they didn't like each other in real life. Therefore, she thought that she was Lucy Pickens. Therefore, she didn't like Mary Chestnut.
yeah.
So that's the type of people we hang with.
Okay, I just posted a link to Abraham Lincoln Bookshop in Chicago. Also, like their Facebook page. They do great Facebook Lives with authors on there, great Q&As and all that. So definitely check them out.
And the next time we go to Chicago, we got to make sure we go to his bookshop. When we went there a few weeks ago, we didn't have time, unfortunately, just to
No.
avoid them.
Estella asked, and this is related to the talk the other night that Hampton Newsom gave. Do you think you ever might do a podcast on the Blueberry Raid?
Yeah, that was what we were just kind of talking about a few minutes ago, and that's fascinating too because not too many people know who John Dix is. So it was kind of a battle that took place. It was a battle, loose quotation figures battle. Basically, what it was while Lee was here in Pennsylvania, Dix was going to go make a run at Richmond while he wasn't paying attention. It was really designed to cut the railroads between Richmond and Pennsylvania is really what it was. It's a really, 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 really niche battle. And Hampton's book is the only one that I can remember that's ever really talked about it. But yeah, absolutely. When we get into the springtime, we get into the summertime, that's one that's definitely on the list. Now that his book is out there, his book is going to be the primary source for it because it's one of those things. There's just not a lot of info out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No, there's so I still need to read his book too.
yeah, no question about it. And he's nice. He's mailed us a handful of his books, and
Yeah.
I've read a handful of them. And when we resurrect the book club next year, his book is going to be one of the ones we're going to do. So that's the
Yeah.
plan.
This Nola thing has come up again.
Oh, Gentili probably.
Yeah, he's like, God, anything not to do with Nola episode, doing episodes about fruit.
Well, if Cesnola did a little more, Johnny, there was more stuff out there.
Every time he says Nola, all I picture is Luigi from Mario Brothers.
Yeah, that's funny. No, it says no. We've talked about doing the Cesnola one. That's one of the ones that we can talk about. Obviously, you're getting into AMU. You're getting into Aldi when you're talking about
Yeah.
Cesnola. So that's certainly one of the ones we can talk about.
Yeah. And David was wondering, what is the book? I think by Hampton Newsom. It's Gettysburg Southern Front, right?
Gettysburg Southern Front. Yep.
Yeah.
I should have had it up. It's down the bookcase, but it's a really really good book and talks about an aspect of the Gettysburg campaign. It wasn't really directly part of the Gettysburg campaign, but it was simultaneous to the Gettysburg campaign. So it was designed really to just try to get behind Lee, let him know there was a battle taking place heading towards Richmond in his Savannah, but it didn't really mount to much. It was kind of
So,
fizzled. It fizzled, but it's interesting too. And there's a lot of different things that were going on during it. And Beauregard, believe it or not, the Gettysburg campaign was supposed to go along the coast and threaten Baltimore. So Meade or Hooker / Meade would have to direct
yeah,
troops towards Baltimore to pull troops away from Lee's campaign. And that never happened either. So there's a lot of different
yeah,
things that were supposed to go on, moving parts that never really happened. But the Blueberry Raid's fun, and that's a fun one. That could be a good one we could definitely talk about.
yeah. And I was just looking at Luigi Cesnola. He got the Medal of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
He was released from Libby Prison, Wilderness and Petersburg campaigns. Interesting. Looks like
Yeah,
an interesting guy.
our official photographer / consigliere is going to appreciate that episode.
Yeah. Conciliary.
That could be a potential around Columbus Day episode, maybe.
Yeah. For the Italians in the Civil War.
Oh yeah, we'll drink white wine for that episode.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know.
oh, Italian white wine.
Of course. Is there any other?
Jeez. But yeah, we have to read or I have to read Hampton Newsom's book. I think you've already read it before. But yeah, it's just another aspect that it's not really talked about too much in the Civil War, right? Or lesser known battles. It's like that book I got about Howard, that focuses kind of on him after the Civil War. It's called I think it's called The Good Man, and it talks about Howard as an abolitionist as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this someday you're going to write a really good book on Howard, and I'm sure it'll be a big part of it too. You know.
I want to focus on, I'd love to write just about his post Gettysburg career in the Civil War because everybody stops at like Gettysburg and is like, he sucked. And then you're like, yeah, but he goes on to do this, this, and this.
Well, that's always been the dilemma with you with this because we've talked to people who think that Oliver Otis Howard was born at the Battle of Chancellorsville and died after the Battle of Gettysburg, and
Yeah.
that's his entire existence is 3 months, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing before, there was nothing afterwards, and we hear it. We did the tour over with Hoptack that time. Remember, this
Yeah.
guy's mumbling to himself about the 11th Corps and Howard running. It's like,
And then do you turn around and say like, look at the first Corps running.
yeah, same deal, but that's fine. But I think there's a lot. That's why you do history, though. You learn and you try to, enrich yourself with different concepts and different ideas with that stuff. I mean, admittedly, before we started doing this podcast, I mean, Howard to me was someone who, yeah, was one of the guys who got routed at Chancellorsville, who had a tough time, who was the Freedmen's Bureau, but there wasn't a lot. When you get into someone like him, you go down rabbit holes, you realize how impactful he actually really was. Going to give credit to Howard here, right? Because he was. I mean, he actually was.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, especially post-war, again, talking about Reconstruction, how it would have been very easy for a lot of these guys. My binky, Charles Tilden, you know what he did? He took his ball and went home and said, the hell
Yeah.
with this. I'm going back to Maine. I don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. A lot of these guys after the war, they said, well, why do we fight this war to win it if we're not going to push this concept of what we think afterwards to try to make the country better?
Yeah.
And Howard did that. And
Yeah.
a lot of them did. But a lot of them didn't. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
blame them. I mean, you have a miserable experience for 4 years. You're seeing your friends die, they're killed, wounded, the whole deal, disease. You want to turn around and you want to call it a day and go back to live your life. And so kudos to someone like him who wanted to kind of push that message on. Because what's the point of fighting for ultimately what turned out to be, emancipation and equality and all the stuff that came later if you're not going to fight it afterwards politically, right?
Yeah. And too with Howard, he, obviously known as the Christian general, but he took what was written in the Bible, like what Jesus said about basically, I can't remember what the exact thing was, but he took that and applied it to how humans should, like everybody should be treated. That's why he was like, African Americans are equals. And then when bad stuff was happening to the Chinese people in America, he was like, why is this happening? There are equals.
Well, I mean that's the whole thing with that was, um, what the war didn't set the war the shooting stopped, but a lot of the concepts didn't
Yeah.
change. And you know you've been down to the
Yeah.
South, you know how it works. So, you know,
Bjorn mentions Adelbert Ames' most important resume item is from Reconstruction, not the first day at Gettysburg.
I went to go visit Adelbert Ames' grave. He's buried in Lowell, Mass, right behind Benjamin Butler, and he they were relatives to a marriage, and so he's Adelbert Ames. I mean, people don't really, first of all, don't pronounce his name right. Most people say Adelbert, right?
Yep.
But he was Chamberlain before. He was Chamberlain the 20th Maine, and he was very instrumental with Reconstruction. He was. Um, I don't think most people even realize what he did in the first day at Gettysburg. To be honest with you, I think most people don't associate that with they never probably even heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think that's a good point. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of these guys continued the political fight after the war was over.
Yeah.
And then that's why it's important when you study some of these biographies and you read some of these people to read what they did, and not to keep beating the dead horse. That's why I love Varon's book on Longstreet, because we have friends who are big Longstreet people. I like Longstreet. I'm not against Longstreet, but I think people assume the war ended and that's the end of him. How he kind of flipped the narrative and kind of swallowed the dog, literally, with everything, and really focused on the Reconstruction aspect of it all, which pissed off a lot, which is a huge part of the genesis of the Longstreet versus Lee stuff now. Because they look at Longstreet as not someone who went against Lee in the Battle of Gettysburg and all that stuff in the movie, but about someone who went against the whole Confederate concept afterwards and kind of turned into a scallywag, right? A carpetbagger with everything. And they never forgave him for that. They really, a lot of them didn't. And you read Douglas Southall Freeman, my God, you would think it was Voldemort by the way he talks about some of these people. But again, Longstreet does himself no favors either, because you read his memoirs, he spins it the other way, that he was kind of the invisible hand behind everything, and everything that he did was right. And so I noticed the Lee Longstreet thing. It's funny how it goes. Sometimes it's pro Lee, negative, and it kind of goes like this.
It's interesting how that happened. Like for a long time, it's kind of like the Meade thing with Gettysburg. Like for a long time, it was Meade sucks. And now it's kind of going back the other way. But I do agree with you. Like Longstreet and Lee are constantly like they're at odds with one another, which is interesting post Civil War. Um, you know.
Well, I mean, it was. I think it's right now Longstreet, I think, is getting a little bit more of a better look, and I think right now it's kind of an ebb and flow, where you're getting a little more flow in the Longstreet, a little more ebb on the Lee. But it's gone back and forth ever since before, because you had a lot of people who they did not want to blame Gettysburg on Lee. Walter Taylor, Marshall, all these guys, and it turned into everyone except Lee. That's where the whole Jeb Stuart foolishness comes from.
Yeah.
Right. You
that's one thing I can't. That's one thing I can't stand.
Right?
That's one thing I can't stand is how this myth about Jeb is still persisting. That he was late and blah blah blah. Like it's, Tilly, name one other Civil War general besides Longstreet who also went on to win a major game in the MLB.
Major league game. That's true. He did that too.
Thank you.
But just like the Civil War, he couldn't win in the end, though. He lost the big one in the end. I mean, you got a movie about the Indians, a fake movie, and even in the fake movie, they can't win.
In the sequel, it turns out they didn't win the World Series.
Even Henry Rowengartner's Cubs won the World Series. If there was ever a time for the Indians to win, it's going to be fiction, and they still couldn't do it.
Nope.
And you can't even blame a rain delay on this one.
No, that's what I love about the Indian. I'm still a fan, though. I've stuck by them.
Good for you. I'm glad you stuck with them, because it would be easy to jump and bandwagon on.
No, I won't do that. I love the Tribe. They're a fun team. Like and yeah, we come close almost every year, but we just don't get it.
That's good.
Never do.
But Longstreet, though, for real though, his life is absolutely fascinating. It just is, and
Mhm.
the guy who was basically raised by a very pro-slavery guy, um, and it was uncle, I believe, and he ends up fighting for the Confederacy, and but then afterwards, good relationship with Grant, good relationship, trying to promote everything going forward,
Yeah.
similar to Mosby in a lot of regards. They did the best. They would call it a day.
Yeah.
Mosby, it's funny because Mosby pretty quickly, right afterwards, he when they were chasing Booth down, Stanton was going to reach out to Mosby. This is April of '65 now, to ask Mosby to help hunt down Booth and Harold. And then he decided it was going to be too politically bad if he did that. But he was going to reach out to Mosby to try
Yeah.
to chase down John Wilkes Booth. A lot of people don't realize that.
That's
That
really
you know,
fascinating.
but he never did. And Mosby went through his own political crap afterwards. He got pushed out of his law firm in Alexandria and got driven to the north. He was a persona non grata, Mary. He was
Oh yeah.
he was you at the bar at 1 o'clock in the morning where the beer is going. Go home, you know. And then he finally came back, and now as history goes on, John Mosby is looked upon as one of the true heroes in the South. But that's it's funny how that goes, you know.
Someone said, James said, ask Darren how Boston College is doing.
They're doing great. They beat Maine last night, 7-4. So they're 7-3. So they're doing well. So another trip to the Frozen Four is coming.
Every time, and still sometimes when people talk about Mosby, I'm like picturing the gray cat.
Well, people think of Garfield as the orange cat.
I know. But it was so funny when, like, I think I've told this story before. When we got the cat, I told my dad, and my dad's like, "What would you call it?" And I said Mosby, and he was like instantly, "Oh, after the Confederate guy." I'm like, "How do you know?" Like, I
No,
like it was so random that he knew exactly who he was.
no, but I think that there are certain when you study the A-list people, of course, in the Confederacy, you're talking about Lee, you're talking about Longstreet, you're talking about Forrest, you're talking about Jackson. Um, but Mosby was one who kind of came along later. He kind of had that renaissance, like we were saying a little while ago, where
Yeah.
for the most part, um, you don't have a lot of the history by his contemporaries, and he never surrendered. I mean,
No.
he brought his men aside and said, "Boys, go home, call it a day." So he's kind of like the Seminoles, never surrendered. But what's fascinating about Mosby was how he realized, we did our job, we did the best we could, and now it's time to move on. And so then a lot of them didn't do that. A lot of them did, but a lot of them didn't.
Yeah.
It was one of those it was one of those things. But
Allie Kay just said Mosby mentioned the Gentilly siren call, and then Gentilly, I'm so damn excited right now.
well, you talk about mention Gentilly, that the phrase Mosby's rock isn't just about a rock. I'll be better in 4 hours. Don't worry.
Oh God. Bjorn said Darren, BC, Boston College was recently involved at Vicksburg as a repository of original Civil War drawings of the Becker collection.
Yeah, Boston College has a whole bunch of history stuff. They got in a lot of trouble about 20 years ago with the Irish because they had a lot of IRA stuff. Um, but they have a lot of good history stuff with them as well. They really, really do. Football sucks this year, but that is what it
That's
is.
what James was saying. He's like, ask him about football.
Well, we're winning it all next year. Next year is going to be Eagles in 26. But
Um, John said that would be fascinating. Re Booth. Imagine Mosby's interaction with the U.S. cavalry if he did join the search. Talk about awkward.
well, James Ames would have been the opposite, when the reverse, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd be curious, and it's funny as you read these things, like how history might have been different. If Stanton did reach out to Mosby, I bet you he would have done it. I bet you he would have, because you have a couple of Mosby's Rangers who ultimately end up with Booth at the end.
Yeah.
Guys like Mortimer Ruggles, Absalom Bearbridge, Willie Jett. Although Willie Jett is arguable that he was one of Mosby's Rangers, but I bet you if they went to Mosby and they said, "Will you help?" I bet you he would have.
I wonder if Stant would have been like, you need to join this Doherty guy with the New York Cavalry.
Yeah. But that's how desperate they were though. And it's funny when you look at some of these people like Lafayette Baker, basically, when you find out like how he caught him, they had this big reward, $100,000 and all this money. And Lafayette Baker was about as corrupt and as dirty as you're ever going to get. And he basically gets a telegram at the War Department of Booth basically being possibly being cited, down where we were a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. And he takes the telegram, takes it, doesn't show anybody. But he starts reaching out to guys like Edward Doherty and these people to go ahead and try to find him on his own. When they caught him when they killed him April 26th, Stanton had no idea that Doherty they were even down there. They had no idea because they thought he was still in Maryland, but they didn't know where he was. But there was no like, we're going to look for him here because Baker wanted the money. And then after the whole thing went down, it turned into a pissing match. But who got the cash?
Didn't Doherty get some of it?
He got he got a little bit of it, but not that much. Baker wanted the lion's share of it, even though he stayed in Washington the entire time because he was the one who found him. And he initially got it, and then Congress came back and said, "No, we're going to take that away from you. We're going to give it. You're going to get a little bit." Guys like Boston Corbett got some, but it's always fascinating to me, like how many people in that conspiracy got off with little or nothing. Like guys like Richard Garrett got arrested, Thomas Jones got arrested. And the funny part about Thomas Jones is, not to bore everybody with the Lincoln assassination, but when Thomas Jones, he was the one, if people don't know who he is the one who was bringing the food out to the pine thicket.
Yeah.
With Booth, with him and Harold. He had a farm called Huckleberry, which is right by the river. And he's the one who led them down to the river, put them in the boat and the skip and sent them off and all that. Well, no one knew it. No one in the world knew he existed in far as the Booth world until 1883, when our newspaper reporter says, I have a feeling this Thomas Jones guy knows more about it. By then, Jones was older, the trial was over, everybody was dead. And he told the whole story of what he did. If they knew that at the time, he would have been the first to hang. Absolutely, he would have.
Oh yeah.
But he's like, yeah, this is what I did. I did everything, and he lived off of a little bit, and he died not too long afterwards. Fascinating guy, though.
Yeah, well, it's like telling people about like at work. They'll ask me stuff about the assassination. They'll be like, so like, who was hung and who wasn't. And I'm always like, I do chime in about Mudd, and I'm always like, if the four of them were up on the gallows, then Mudd should have been up there too, because he knew stuff.
Mudd probably should have been on the group. He should have been hanged. Realistically, if you're looking at again 2020 hindsight being our benefactor, he probably would have been, because the thing about Mudd though is he kind of outsmarted himself.
Yeah.
When the Confederates when the Union cavalry rather was over in Bryantown, they had no clue that Booth had been there the night before. They had a couple nights before, on the night of the 14th. He had no idea. He decided it'd be best if he rode up to them and admitted to them that Booth was there, but he didn't know who he was. And it turned into them searching the house, and they find the boot, and he got arrested. He could have kept his mouth shut. He probably would have got away with it. But again, if you visit the Booth house, I mean, they had the Mudd house. The Mudd family is still there.
Yeah, so don't talk bad about Mudd.
And that's something that's very important. We were telling the people we went with, when you go to that, if you do that tour, you just go to Samuel Mudd's house. It's a beautiful tour, beautiful house, a lot of original stuff, way more than you think there are.
Yeah.
And but don't bash Samuel Mudd because they'll get pissed. They will, because we were there and there was a Mudd guy sitting right there.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't anyway. I have my own opinions, but I'm not going to go in and be like, this is what I think of this person kind of thing, Because I'm not gonna do that.
In their defense, though, they didn't sit there and try to whitewash what he did. They didn't sit there and say, well, he was innocent, he shouldn't have done it. But what they don't want is people saying, oh, he should have hanged.
Yeah.
Because that's again, you're
I mean, dry Tortugas, the prison, that's kind of one step above having to do that. That was a crappy place to go.
Yeah. Michael McLaughlin died of it was yellow fever.
Yeah.
but they just don't want someone bashing family people. So I think
No,
I think he should have, but I wouldn't say that to the tour. Be that
no.
guy,
I mean, yes, if the other four are up there, then he definitely needs to be up there. Um, and that's always been Mud was the first one I knew about. Oh, James says, but everyone knows Booth escaped to Canada.
Oh, I mean John Boyd.
Was there a story that Booth escaped to Canada?
Oh, this, are you kidding me? There's so many. The primary story is from a book by a guy named Finus Bates, who, and if you read the book, it's a fascinating story, but it's compelling, but you have to kind of like take a step back. Um, the story was he escaped to Texas, then to Enid, Oklahoma, where he lived out his days, but then he inexplicably killed himself. He committed suicide, and then his body was embalmed like a mummy and took on tour. And you can Google John Wilkes Booth body, and you can see that the tour, the mummy, and it's obviously not him. But I think there's a big part of a lot of that. I'm pretty sure that he was killed at the Booth at the Garrett farm, and he was buried, and he ultimately rests at the cemetery in Baltimore with his family. But there are people out there who want to make a good conspiracy. In Bates' book, the murder, the escape and suicide of John Wilkes Booth by Finus Bates is compelling. It's a good read, but it's fiction, unfortunately.
Yeah. Gentili said the house was great. That site easily could have been a Walmart. And then he said Brigger knows a good biker bar near the Mud House too.
Remember he kept banging his jug against all the stuff.
Oh, Kevin, yes.
Yeah.
And we had to tell him. John was like, stop.
It's like, can you stop banging your water bottle against Samuel Mudd's actual bed, Kevin? So weird. So freaking weird.
He's a good kid. Yes.
That's pretty funny. No, but I think but tours like that, you get real good history because you get a lot of local history. We went to the tour at the Surratt House, which was very different than last time I was there.
Oh my God. I was like, whoa.
And
They don't like her there.
No, it's okay, but it's tough to say, but without having fun with my friends at the Surratt House. But I thought that the tour of the at the Mud House was absolutely stunningly good.
It was very, very good. She was such a good tour guide. Answered all of our questions. I really, really liked her. I wish we got her name because she was really good. Booth and Billy the Kid died together running a restaurant in Montreal in 1913. It's Gentili.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a good time, but hopefully people take advantage of that next spring if they do it. If they don't, they could always do it ourselves. But I think it's an interesting thing, but it's okay.
Estella said, I can only imagine the artifacts that are at the Mud House. Yeah, Estella, they've got, so they have the couch that John Wilkes Booth sat on when he arrived. They have as much original items as possible, and they explain that very clearly on the tour. They have the bed that he was on. They have a mirror that was in the room at the time, which he likely looked in. And you and I took a picture.
Which is your current Facebook profile picture.
It is. Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that house is, when you go to a lot of these tours, they talk about the fact, well, it's period furniture. It's not the same stuff, but it's the same thing. Like Booth's bed that he slept in was the actual bed.
Yeah.
The razor he shaved with is the actual razor. Yeah. All the furniture in the room is the exact furniture that he was there. The couch, all the stuff, because it stay with the family, right?
And James asked, do they have Mud's medical stuff?
Yes, they do.
Yep.
If you go, I don't think we put it's on my Facebook page. I don't know if it's on the podcast Facebook page, but I have a picture of his. They brought us to his medical office. We get to hold his book, his signatures on his ledger, but they have all of his stuff, all of his things that are in there. All of his original medical stuff is there. There's a part of the actual of the crutch he made for Booth.
Yeah, and part of the splint, I think. There's also apparently at Dry Tortugas, craft time was a thing because they have all this shit that he made there.
Yeah, he made a bunch of little dolls and a little stuff that he sewed
together.
He
also made these jewelry boxes that were covered in shells.
Yeah. It's crazy. But I mean, when you go there and see the stuff, it's just like because you're looking legitimately at the original stuff.
Yeah.
That's what's weird about it. And I swear, and I could be wrong. Sometimes, some rabbit falls asleep in the wheel once in a while with me. I swore one time I went there, Booth's boot was there, but I think I'm pretty sure
It's
it's over.
always been at Ford's Theater.
So I'm probably confusing with that, but I could have sworn maybe they had it there in consignment or something. But I swore the first time I went to the Mud House, Booth's boot was there, and you could flip it up and you could look at his initials inside the boot. That's all cut up, but in all seriousness, that if that is maybe one of the cooler places you could visit is that Mud House.
Yeah.
It's just fun, but it's just because it's all originals and they were getting it ready for a Halloween party that night.
Yeah.
Remember? And they
Because there was
had
a
all
casket in
they
the
had
living
they had
room.
they were doing like a funeral thing in the parlor with the casket. There was all this black crepe everywhere, and all the mirrors were covered with black crepe because they
Yeah.
look at it. It was creepy, but
Except the mirror upstairs. And yeah, and Gentili mentions it's prime land to be redeveloped. Like that's the thing, is this place is in an area that could have easily, as he said, been a Walmart, you know. Um,
yeah, I
but yeah,
mean,
and seeing the stuff was just it was like, whoa, it's creepy and it's cool at the same time. Um, because and the handrail going upstairs was the same one that they all touched.
yeah, they said when you're coming down the stairs, run your hand on the handrail because that's the exact Booth would have used his hand on that rail. You're putting your hand in the exact hand that he would have done. That's the same rail. We don't cover it. You can grab it all you want. So you kind of walk up there like you're kind of limping with your broken leg going up the stairs to the bedroom, and
Yeah.
you put your hand in the exact same
Well, I
spot.
was thinking that, like, how did he get up the stairs? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
but like it was, and James said surely there would be two boots. Some like but the one boot was cut off and left at Mud's place.
They didn't give him a new boot. They gave him kind of a like a slipper.
Yeah, it was a split, and his leg was
Yeah.
splinted.
So what happens is in if you read on James Swanson's book Manhunt, which is the best book about the escape.
Yeah.
I mean, Kaufman's book American Brutus is the best book on Booth, but the escape Swanson's book is the best. He talks about the fact that his leg was swollen. His left leg, he broke a bone about 3 inches above his ankle. So they tried to take it off. It was all swollen. They couldn't do it. They basically had to cut it off and peel it off. They took a sock off and
Oh.
tried to do all that stuff. But they put a splint on it, and part of the splint you can see right at the Mud House.
Hmm.
They gave him some sort of slipper he had, and read about his time in the pine thicket, how it got infected and how it was
Oh.
pus pouring out of it, and all that stuff. I guess he deserved it. Deservedly so. He went through misery,
Yeah.
but he but you can see all that stuff. The couch was put on, all
Yeah.
that stuff he was done, and Mud went back and he basically made crutches for him. But yeah, he should. I mean, he originally met John Wilkes Booth at St. Mary's Church. We visited where Mud's buried now.
Yep.
Then he met him again in Washington D.C. And then Mud eventually said later on that he knew it was Booth at the house that night, but he
Yeah.
never admitted it. He had to have, but I'm pretty
Of
sure
course he did.
I'm pretty sure Swanson said later in the book that he admitted that he knew who he was when he was pardoned by Johnson. He knew who he was because
Yeah.
they were all pardoned in 1869. I
Yeah.
mean, Michael O'Laughlin died of yellow fever, but Sam Arnold, Edwin Spangler, all those guys who were at Tortugas all got released. And Spangler goes back to the Mud House, becomes a kind of a handyman because he had no options because he wasn't going back to Ford's Theater again. That was the end.
No.
Ford's Theater was gone. And he ended up living and dying on the property. He died in the Mud House. And he's buried about a mile from the Mud House.
Spangler and I share a birthday, August 10th.
There you go. A guy who got totally screwed, by the way, Spangler.
Yeah. He was just holding the horse, right?
Holding the horse. You know what's funny about that whole thing? We didn't talk about this when we did our tours. It pops in my head now. After Pomfrey Stables, which is a Baptist alley, we were showing you where the stable was.
Yep.
Do you know what that stable turned into after the assassination, just by happenstance?
A brothel? I don't know.
No, look at you with a dirty mind. No, a funeral home. And do you know Booth's body was brought there in 1869?
Whoa.
So his body was brought back to the Pomfrey Baptist Alley in the exact stable, except now it was a funeral home. And the Ford's Theater was made into a medical museum. So you had part of Booth's vertebrae, and you had Lewis Powell's skull in the same building at Ford's Theater. It's just crazy.
That's weird.
It's just a weird history that how everything kind of all comes back to Ford's Theater. But the Baptist Alley funeral home thing is a creepy.
That's interesting. Wow.
That just
Speaking of bodies and stuff, so I was doing my research this morning.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm into reanimating bodies. I'm going down the path of Sam and Dean Winchester now.
And Ben Franklin, by the way.
Oh, was he? Oh, yeah, that's right. He was into that too.
He had a bunch of bodies buried in his basement in London.
So weird. So anyway, I was researching this morning about Fanny Sims Granberry, who I'm portraying tonight at the Masonic fundraiser we're going to, married to Hiram Granberry. I did not know they dug him up and moved him to Granbury, Texas, like 30 years after the Battle of Franklin. I was like, what the?
Well, it happens. I mean,
I'm like, that's. And now I'm like wondering, because I'm morbid. I'm like, did they open up his casket to see what was left? Because they opened up Claiborne's, right?
I don't know if they would have opened his casket or not.
But they opened up Claiborne's, didn't they?
They opened up Claiborne's, and he was totally
he was a skeleton.
Well, he wasn't embalmed.
No,
So I mean, if you're not embalmed,
they didn't embalm him.
Claiborne?
Yeah.
No.
I thought they would have.
No, they put him just buried immediately. A few of these battlefield deaths were embalmed. They tried to embalm George Lynn Willard.
Oh, that's gross.
They couldn't because he got shot. His jugular, so they couldn't do it. They put a flag over it. Oh. They had an open casket weeks later. It was basically half run.
Oh, Gentili says he wants a refund on the tour now.
All right, fine. I'll give him a refund.
We'll take you for a beer. We'll take you for a beer and a lager and a white wine somewhere.
We'll take you for a white wine on a hot summer day, John. Make it up to you.
We'll take you somewhere where there's chickens too.
Oh yeah. That's pretty
funny. Chickens. I think this is Tony that's on here. He said we have Sharp's DNA on the floor at the Leicester house.
Oh, that's gotta be Etscore. Has to be Sharp's DNA on the floor of the Leicester house. He probably scooped that right up too.
Oh. Jeffrey said the original green burials.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, someone like that, you're not gonna go out of your way to. I mean, how are you gonna do it? I mean, the army's gone. I mean, people who died at Franklin, they're just going to get buried. He got buried in a church graveyard.
Yeah, where he wanted to be buried because he told Lucius Polk that. He said, I want to be buried there. And then someone was like, let's move him.
And they ended up moving his body, but they ended up taking, he moved to Helena, Arkansas. But yeah, for some reason they opened the casket. And if you Google that story, they talk about how he was basically a full skeleton.
Okay, so here's the thing. If I was him and I was like, I want to be buried under that tree for eternity because it seems peaceful and someone moved my body, I'm likely going to haunt wherever I want it to be buried.
Why? That makes no sense.
Because that's where I really want to be.
You gotta haunt a cemetery?
He was in a cemetery, but maybe that explains why he haunts Franklin. One of the when I think about these stories about people being dug up and stuff, was when Weaver and those guys were digging up the bodies here at Gettysburg, for example, right? And they would put in the National Cemetery. When they couldn't tell, like they buried the bodies, like we said before, they buried the skull, the rib cage, and the pelvis. That's all they buried, right? But they collected all the buttons in the belt buckles, all the metal that was with them. And they put them in a big, huge collection area in a building which is still in Gettysburg, right on Baltimore Street. If you're walking in the front from Baltimore Street into the cemetery through those big gates, right to your right-hand side, there's a big brick building. Yeah.
And they kept it must have been hundreds and hundreds and thousands of buttons and belt buckles. And they were going to ship those down to Washington for like a museum. And for some reason, they took them to Baltimore and put them on a boat to ship them to Washington. You know what happened to all that stuff?
It disappeared.
A storm hit, the boat sank, and all the stuff is lost.
Ew.
How much Gettysburg history got lost?
Wow.
And it was kept in that original building, and they took them all, and it all sank in the water, which is tragedy if you think about it. But why they didn't bury that stuff with the bodies, I guess I'll never quite understand. But I guess it's just the way
Yeah,
they did it because
that's
they weren't burying the full bodies.
yeah,
So I guess you kind of had to.
yeah.
There's no way to keep track of everything, you know.
And the reason there would be Sharp's DNA in the floor in Leicester House is because he was in there with them that meeting.
Yeah, probably.
And also, so Frank asked this legit question. He's always wondered how a uniform like Claiborne's is on display. Did they remove every officer's uniform before the burial? But I think the story behind Claiborne's jacket is he wasn't wearing it during
Yeah,
the battle.
he didn't have that one on. That was a jacket that he was the story. Who the hell knows? This is was that he wasn't actually killed in the jackets. You
Yeah, he
know,
wasn't wearing it.
but so who knows? Who
I
knows? But
remember somebody like saying like, because the jacket, it's wool and it had not been stored properly. So if you Google General Claiborne's jacket, it's on display at one of the satellite sites of the American Civil War Museum, which is based out of Richmond. It's near Appomattox. Anyway, it has all these holes in it because it's been eaten by moths. Anyway, someone once like I saw they posted, they're like, "Oh my God, look how much he got shot." And I'm like, that's moths.
oh
Like
yeah,
it was not stored properly. Um, and so anyway, it has a lot of holes in it. Have a good day, Bjorn. Bjorn's heading off. Lots of work to do.
he's a busy guy. He's the busiest guy in show business, no question. You know,
Frank's like, we could verify the story if we take a trip to Helena, Arkansas.
just bring a shovel.
What are we going to go, Dean and Sam Winchester on that?
Yeah, that show is a great show, Supernatural. But I never understood how they can dig up a body and never have the cops come.
Well, they were for a while, and then yeah. I'm watching it a second time, so I'm like, okay, that's why this is happening now. So, um, but yeah, if seeing Claiborne's uniform last year was real, that was awesome. Or not his uniform, but his jacket. That was really cool to see that.
That would have been really, really cool if there was more stuff. And how it ends up of all places in Appomattox, that museum, and not the one in
Yeah.
Richmond, is a different story.
Well, when they found his body, wasn't he like they'd taken his boots?
Um, yeah, I mean, boots, stuff like that's gonna be, it's gonna be gone.
But someone had left him so that they knew he was like Masonic.
Well, yeah, he was the way he was laid out, the way his body was found. It was if you're it was a yes. Whoever laid his body out was definitely Masonic. Just the way it was found, it was laid out. But so someone took care of him.
Do you think I remember talking to you about this one time. You think he got pulled over by the Union troops and they took care of him?
Probably, I imagine probably so. I mean, it
And then
probably.
they took his body back over to the other side, like to the Confederate
No, I
side.
don't. I don't think so. I think it was probably after the fact. When they, someone recognized. I mean, I don't know if he had anything on. I'm not sure if he identified himself in one way or another. I'm guessing he probably got killed relatively quickly.
Well, apparently he had his cap was pulled down so you couldn't see his eyes, and he looked like he was just sleeping. But it was something about his body, the way it was laid out, that they were like, this guy's a Mason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was a way that he definitely someone put him out there knowing they did that probably so some Confederate or some Union guy would come along. Actually, it probably was a Confederate who did it because it would have been the Union who would have had to deal with the bodies afterwards, and they probably um, did that so they would bury him. So
Okay.
there's a very unique way he was laid out, and so if someone saw him, they would recognize him a certain way, But who knows? Who knows?
But they didn't do that with Granbury, right? Because Granbury was found like face down.
He was falling on his knees. He didn't fall all the way down.
Was he
Like,
found his knees like this?
he was on his knees, his hands over his face, like he was praying. They thought they looked like he was still alive. And then he was
Yeah,
shot.
then they turned him over and it's like, oh, he's
You know.
missing half of his face.
Shot in the face. He gave love a bad name. Yeah.
Stella asked, Masons are buried differently.
No, they're not buried differently, but there's certain ways you can do there are certain things you can do to show that you are. It's hard to explain, but if you saw it, you would know, but you wouldn't recognize it. But it's on battlefields are ways you can lay people out so they would know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's And yeah, so anniversary of Franklin is next Sunday, November 30th.
That's right. It's November.
I
That's
think it
that
was
that.
at approximately 5:30 in the afternoon because they didn't have daylight savings time back then.
Um, yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
definitely need to, we're probably going to get there in the spring, hopefully, or fall next year, actually, I think is our planned trip.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to do a Franklin next year. We want to do Charleston, Savannah again too, but I think our next new trip will be Franklin. So
Yeah,
what was what April for that probably? Is that what we talked about?
I think so. And well, our next trip is we are going back to the Great White North.
Well, we'll see, weather permitting, right?
Yeah, weather permitting, we are going back to the Great White North
You know,
for Thanksgiving.
and so it'll be it'll that yeah it'd be nice, it'll be nice to get up there again. But if something happens, we don't make it. Yeah, we have to. I guess we'll reschedule that. But I think Franklin would be one that we have to obviously fly out there and rent a car and that stuff. So I think
Yeah,
some else.
Savannah we have to fly to as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to drive for that. Christ's sakes, But it's there's some of our partners in crime want to go visit some of these places with us, so we'll be able to
Mhm.
do that stuff too. All right, we should already jump off pretty soon. It's coming
Yeah,
around to
we gotta
noontime.
go grocery shopping. I have to finish my Fanny Granberry, which is tell you, doing research about a person who left no writings and there's very little known about her is it's challenging, but I have to say I am happy to be able to tell her story because she doesn't have a voice in history. And she is a lady who had a lot of health issues. I think she had probably polycystic ovarian syndrome, which developed into ovarian cancer, unfortunately, which is what killed her. But when Texas seceded and Hiram Granberry decides he's going to fight, she doesn't stay home. She goes with him.
Mhm.
And she is with him when he gets captured at Donelson and he's got to go to Camp Douglas, Camp Chase, and Fort Warren in Boston. And she goes to each of those different places and stays somewhere. When she gets to Boston, it is General Grant um, who ends up helping her, not personally, but make sure that she finds an apartment near Boston Common to live. She can't go visit him when he's in prison, but she can write him letters and send him food. And then she ends up having horrible stomach pains when she's in Boston. And it turns out it's ovarian cancer. And because of that, the guy who is the head guy at the prison at Fort Warren, now Granberry was going to be exchanged anyway, but he's able to go early to be with her because she has to have surgery. Turns out they can't perform the surgery because her ovarian cancer is too far advanced. So she's a
Mhm.
very sad story, but she's this woman who's like, I'm coming with you on,
Yeah, it's his stories. I mean, there's a lot of these ones are very sad ones, and Granberry's one again. A lot of people don't study Hiram Granberry, don't study Fanny Granberry, but I mean, these are humans you deal with, and every one of these people has we said before they have their dreams, they have their lives, whatever they want to believe in. As far as people goes, and her story is a tough one, and there's a lot of people who followed their husbands. John Bell Hood. I mean, John Brown Gordon's wife
yep.
was another one that comes to mind.
I think her name
Um,
might have been Fanny as well.
a lot of fannies, a lot of fannies, a lot of
What
Hirams.
was Fanny short for? Because I would love to be able to say, I can't imagine like her parents were like, let's call her Fanny.
Maybe she had a large backside, Mary. Think of it's possible.
Granberry like big butts.
He cannot lie.
Oh, Jesus. Well, he's a
Other
Mason.
other people can't deny.
I'll be thinking about that tonight when I present.
Oh, you have to do that tonight.
Oh,
So if anybody who's going to our event tonight, hopefully, we'll see you there. It'll be a Good Samaritan Lodge in Gettysburg. We're going to be doing first person presentations. I'll be doing John Ransom. Mary will be doing Fanny Granberry. There's going to be someone who's going to be doing a Civil War surgeon, our friend Trevor, and then there's going to be a Thaddeus Stevens um, society member who portrays Thaddeus Stevens, which is going to be fascinating because Thaddeus Stevens was not a fan of the Freemasons. So I'm curious how this one's going to be spun and how they're going to do this. So hopefully, it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if I don't think they're videoing or anything like that. They're not the most technical,
No.
but we'll, hopefully it'll work out well, and we'll do that. So I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation as always, Mary. So off we go. So I think it'd be a pretty good story. So all right. So our updates we're going to be doing for the next episodes we're going to be releasing soon. And so it'll probably be general specific or things like that specific. We'll figure that out. And then we'll be doing a roundtable here down around the corner. We're going to schedule that as well.
Soon. Yep. Probably after Thanksgiving, we will schedule it. And we hope everybody has a very happy Thanksgiving, if that's what you celebrate. Happy holidays, all of that. So Larry said, you guys are amazing and treasures in the Civil War community. Well, thank you for that. That's very kind.
Let us know where to send the money for that one.
Yep. Christopher said, have a good rest of the weekend and hope the event goes well. Christopher, we enjoyed having beers with you a few weeks ago too.
Yeah, Chris Walter. He's the man.
Yep, he's awesome.
So hopefully, we'll see him again soon. He's always fun to hang with in Gettysburg. Good beer drinking guy like myself, and you for that matter. We'll definitely look forward to seeing him soon. So
and Fragile X Factor said, have fun tonight. If I'm not mistaken, I listened to an old episode of yours this week. Then I wish Darren all the best on Tuesday. Yes, happy birthday to you on Tuesday.
Oh, it's my birthday Tuesday. Well, yeah, that's right.
Also anniversary of the Battles for Chattanooga.
Yep, another trip around the sun for me. So
happiest of birthdays to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I don't celebrate birthdays anymore. I celebrate anniversaries on my 18th birthday. So that's what I'll be doing. So we'll have a good time with that.
That's what my dad tried doing with 39. And then I eventually told him it would be really creepy buying him a card that said happy 39th when I was like 40.
No. Well, that's all good. Well, in case we probably won't see anybody, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy the turkey, the wine, everything else. Make sure you have macaroni and cheese with your turkey because it's mandatory. A lot of people.
My boss does that, by the way.
You got to do mac and cheese. You got to do it.
She also adds champagne to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
She said it's so good. Oh, Estella's birthday's Tuesday as well.
I knew that. Remember that.
Happy birthday, Estella.
Happy birthday in advance, Estella. So the greatest people on the planet are born on the 25th of November, That's true.
And the greatest battles are won.
That is true.
By men named George Henry Thomas.
Aha. I see what you did there. Okay. All right. So off we go. Everybody have a great holiday. If we don't see you, I don't know if we will because actually we probably won't. So have a fantastic day. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I appreciate all the good work, all the good words, and we'll talk to you all soon. Mary, any final words from you before we jump off into the great beyond? Off grocery shopping we go, Mary.
To Target.
To Target.
Love Target.
Going to Target.
Yep.
Target in rural Pennsylvania is a different world. But we look forward to seeing it.
It's better than Walmart.
All right.
See y'all later.
Talk to y'all soon. Peace out.
Bye, guys.
Bye.